So I'm going to start, let's go at 146. And really, I'm going to take a couple of these skill sets. So I've got the what I call the stutters right there in the first measure. And I need to make sure that I've got the 4-stroke rough. I've got a long roll, a 15 or 17-stroke roll, and then some just various hand speed changes that are very quick. So honestly, I'm going to go through and I'm going to take that first measure and I'm going to see what does that stutter feel like at 146 with the accents, no crescendo. Now, mind you, I'm trying to keep that digga-da, digga-da, digga-da. I'm not trying to round it out so it turns into, it's not a 9-lit. Okay, so those are 16th notes. My hand's going, I got to hear that quartet note triplet. And digga-da, 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 digga-da. Okay, I'm tapping my foot the whole time, so I feel that quarter note. I'm with the met. Okay, now let's try the crescendo. I'm only going for mezzo forte, so I don't need to go all the way down, and I don't need to push all the way out to the edge. And I also need to underplay that down because there's not an accent. We're leading to beat 2. That's kind of a theme in this piece, and as we read through in the beginning, we should note that a lot of these cadence points end up on beat 2. So I'm going to make sure I lay into beat 2 in that first measure. Let's keep going. And then, and it starts to bring some character life when you start to see different accents. Is every accent treated the same? I don't think so. I think beat 4, because it has the ornament, it feels a little bit more important. Right? So it has a little more importance. And then again, we're leading to beat 2. And then 3 leads us into 4. So we really have to take into consideration, first of all, what's the composer's intent with every single marking. Every accent and every flam and every drag are not treated equally. They're ornaments to those specific beats, and the composer wants to mark those beats. So we, the performer, have to interpret that and say, what am I going to do with that expressively? What am I going to do with that to push the phrase forward? Okay, so we keep going into the next phrase. What I love about bar 2 to 3 is that challenge of going between the triplet rhythm into the dotted 8/16, and I think this is a big challenge for us to make sure that we communicate. Anytime I'm going from a triplet phrase to a dotted 8/16, I always take that dotted 8/16 and I like to squeeze that to the next beat as much as I can. So if we're really thinking digga digga da, digga digga dum, digga digga dum, I'm probably gonna squeeze that a little bit farther to beat 2, da ga da. Just so you really know that it wasn't a triplet, because what can start to happen is we play ba da da dum ga dum, and then it kind of rounds out. So we want to make sure we separate those two motives to make sure that we have a triplet motive and a 16th motive. Okay, so we really have that gap there after beat 1. Ba da da. Okay, and then we have the sustained note, that 17-stroke roll. At different tempos, that buzz might be a little bit faster or slower, but this is one of the biggest things that I want us to make sure that we take note, we have our pencil, we're ready to write down and figure out exactly what our hand speed's going to be to get that roll to be the smoothest. Here's how I figure out my roll speeds. I take whatever speed my hands have to go to get a good, lush roll. I play a triple bounce roll. And that's what feels best in my hands, and that's what gets me a more open sound in my roll. You can do a multiple bounce roll. You can get a little bit tighter buzz. That's not a bad thing. This is how I approach it. So I'm going to use my triple bounce roll, and I'm going to figure out at whatever performance tempo I think I'm going to go, and I think I was going 149, 150. I'm going to figure out what my hand speed, what rhythmic value my hand speed fits in at 149. So I'm going to go back to performance tempo real quick. And I'm just going to roll for a second and figure out what that rhythm is. So against that, it ends up being a 7 over 2 beats there, so 8th note 7. So I'm playing. I don't want to go to an 8 because I really want to stay away from that duple meter. Our ears can start to really hone in on that and really start to hear the pulsing. Okay, so I may have actually been going to 9. Okay, so we're going to make sure that I always like to use odd number groupings for roll speeds. Keeps things a little bit off kilter, a little bit, so we really do hear sustain and not rhythm. Because roll is the illusion of sustain. It's really just a bunch of beats on the head. So we want to try to stay away from whatever rhythm sits within that meter in that tempo. Okay, so I'm going to play 7s, which means I'm going to end up on the opposite hand I start on. So I have to take note of that. So I have everything written in there to make sure that my stickings are consistent every time. So I play right, left, right on 4 and, and then the and a 1 with that 4-stroke rough. And then I'm playing a triplet for that quarter note. And at 149, a triplet hand speed in the quarter note feels really good. It keeps things open and still kind of zips through the quarter note there. But again, I'm ending up on a different hand, so I have to make note of that to make sure that I start that on the same hand every time, and I know that I'm going to come out on a different hand every single time. And again, I'm writing that in. Okay, so what ends up happening, we get to the final product for that line. Right, and then I'm into beat 2 again. Again, the cadence point is on 2 there for that half phrase. Okay, so the next thing I want to take you through is kind of an insight to an issue I was having in this etude. One of the issues, and I'm looking specifically at measure 7 to 9, one of the issues I was having with the sticking that I was using at the tempo that I was trying to perform it at, I had a 3-bar reading issue that my eyes and my hands were just not working through. I'll play it here for you in a second, but the main goal for me when I kept making this mistake was to make sure that I got rid of any habitual stopping point. And what starts to happen, I think, in our practicing is we get to these, what I call stopping points, or bar lines in our brain, where we get to a rhythm or some kind of challenging phrase, and we actually practice in these mistake habits, these stopping points. And I'm sure we've all experienced this that are watching, where there's a point in the phrase or in the piece that you know you have always stopped at. And it's really important that we undo those habits and we spend time acknowledging that that has become a habit, and that is an issue, that beat is an issue. We spend time on that. So the phrase I'm talking about here there's a lot of hand speed changes there. All right, I've got my quarter note triplet stutter into 8th note triplet, not that difficult, into a quarter note roll, which I'm already playing a triplet. So that whole bar is triplet based. Cool. Then I end up on my left hand in the next downbeat, another triplet. But now I'm going triplet 16th, triplet 16th, into a very fast hand speed change 16th note bar. So now I've got to deal with hand speed changes, rhythm changes. I've got to deal with sticking, alternated sticking changes. And this is where I started to really get bugged by this. And what I did was I got rid of all the ornaments, got rid of the flams and the drags. Just play the rhythm, no dynamics, make sure it's right. All right? And I even got rid of the roll, just play the check pattern. Sorry. So it should sound like, now play the right sticking. Nope. Okay, okay, without all the ornaments. Okay, then I start to add the ornaments to help encourage some of those stickings. Some of those stickings are a little awkward without the ornament. Okay, I need to go to beat 4 there and squeeze in that drag. That was an issue for me to always remember to get that drag in there quickly to make sure I don't put a gap between beat 3 and beat 4. Okay, I'm playing a flame tap there. That hand speed change, that's fast. All right, so I've got triple at 16. And I got to get in there for that drag also. So there's a lot of hand speed changes that I just really have to anticipate. And again, create habits to get those things to move forward. And then, after I work out all of those coordination issues, now I have to think expressively. Don't just stop at play the black notes on the page. It's got to go somewhere. And I know that the phrase goes to the end of bar 10, stopping on beat 2 of bar 11. I've marked that in. I know where my phrase is headed. So I got to drive through the flam taps into the next downbeat roll. All right. It's not a crescendo, but man, that wants to have direction through there, doesn't it? Okay. Another 17-stroke roll. I've marked in my roll speed. I've marked in the sticking that I'm starting and ending my hand on. I have so many notes on myself, so sometimes I'm not even reading the notes. My hands know where to go. I'm reading the notes that I've written, the stickings and the accents and the circles and the arrows. I'm working with my tools. Okay, so that's a little insight into, I acknowledge that there was an issue, that I created a stopping point habit, and those things scare me. When I start to notice that, oh man, this bar is causing me issues, I almost put the rest of it on hold and go, no. I don't want to play this piece any further. I don't want to learn any more bad habits until this is fixed, because I'm just going to keep playing it, and I'm going to keep pounding that stopping point in. All right, especially with a piece that you're memorizing, whether maybe it's on marimba or you're memorizing a snare piece, that can be especially dangerous if you allow that to happen too long. Your hands will actually start to take over in those moments, and you'll create that stopping point. So we really want to make sure that we exercise those out, and we create ways to create good habits to make sure that the reading is fluid all the way through. So finally, once I've gone through all my skill sets, I've created my exercises, I've broken down these chunks, I've gotten rid of the errors, I can do run-throughs. The last step for me is to really figure out where the listener needs to hear cadence points, ends of phrases, big and small, half cadence, large, full cadence, big phrase, small phrase. What is the arc of the piece? What is the overall groove of the piece? And in this etude specifically, is the audience getting that each phrase goes to beat 2? Are they getting the recurring triplet motive? Am I pounding them over the head with it? Are they getting the sense of pulse? Is the quarter note clear all the time? So I'm going to take that, I'm going to write in some of my phrase markings, the clear cadence points of where I want the listener to hear them. And I'm going to show you that on the screen with my marked up music here of what I end up with reading during my full run-through. So as you go forward and prepare your own etudes and your own snare drum solos, I hope that you're able to take some of this information and apply it to looking at your timeline and pacing out how you're going to learn things. Are you able to construct exercises early enough to create a routine throughout the week if you're trying to learn in a week? Are you breaking things down early enough to exercise certain skill sets early enough to make sure that you have the tools to do it? And then you can really rely on your reading throughout the week to get yourself through the etude. Remember to get out of those habitual stopping points or the measures in your brain that are creating stopping points. And then once you start digging in, it's important to make sure you allow time to zoom back out later in the week to get those large phrases and again a sense of the piece.